Hi everyone, welcome to the Superhuman Switch podcast. I'll be talking with startup founders, business owners, and corporate executives who are striving to maintain sustainable healthy lifestyle. Today I have a guest. He's a family guy. He is an entrepreneur, business owner, and ultra runner who hates running with passion. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Seth.
First we'll start with how we met. I still remember it was, if not mistaken, it was the first throwdown in Lice Park in 2015, and you were so into the CrossFit. And I remember when we used to compete on the first day and the second day, we always watching some of the qualified athletes, and you were representing in a fight, and it was massive because I still remember your nickname, the German Engine. So it's funny because it's how the shift we're gonna discuss your aspirations, the challenges, and the key achievement that you have done recently. So welcome to the show again, and let's dive into it.
Let's go.
Okay, if you don't mind, just maybe we can share with the audience what you do, because also we're gonna touch a little bit on the business side of things and how you are maintaining this kind of a balance and of course seeking your key milestones when it comes to the fitness and sport itself. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I actually thought that we met way earlier than that, also on a CrossFit competition, but I think a bunch of years earlier. But then I think we kind of lost sight of each other, and then through the LifeSpark setup, we met again. Okay, a little bit about me. I'm German, as you said. I've been in the UAE now since late 2009, so a little bit over 13 years. I used to work in a bank, international bank, for a bit over a decade here in the UAE, and before that in London. And for the last 3 years, run my own business. I have a corporate finance advisory boutique that focuses on debt advisory and transaction management within the corporate finance space, pretty much within the GCC. I think so. In terms of my sporting lifestyle, I've been very sporty since my childhood. I started playing football when I was 5.5 years old. I did that about until roughly 2021. Then I had an accident, had to stop. Then I switched to taekwondo, did that on a competitive basis. Started then working in banking, and stopped doing sports at all for a bunch of years because there was literally no time. When you do investment banking as an analyst, then moved to Dubai and was completely out of shape. So I started doing PTs in the backyard, and then joined Inner Fight, which at that time was very strongly focused on CrossFit. And I enjoyed that very much. Got me into shape. I did CrossFit for, my guess is around 7-8 years. As much competitive as was good for me on a regional level here. And since 2000 and November 18, I slipped into running and ultra running in specifics. And have been doing that since then.
Yeah, it's surprisingly, I knew for a fact that from some of my friends that you hated running, and it's surprisingly that I wouldn't say all the CrossFitters they hate running. It's an advantage for some, but yeah, it's interesting that you moved from CrossFit focus and then you shifted to the running, and it became a passion, and you are basically proud of the achievement. I started to follow you with, if I'm not mistaken, from Sri Lanka, the Sri Lanka run. And what drew my attention that when you got the malaria there. Yeah. So let's start from there, and what basically the challenges that you faced preparing to this race, and after that when you decided to participate in the UTB.
So as you said, yeah, CrossFitters are not as super keen on running. Yeah, they usually are very good in doing workouts between 3, 4, 5 minutes up to 20 minutes at full speed, getting your heart rate up to 180. And I enjoy that very much for some time. But I had a goal at the time that I wanted to, obviously big fan of CrossFit games and all that. So I wanted to participate in a competition where I get my name printed on a shirt. So I have my own jersey. And so I reached that goal at some point in a regional competition in Kuwait, Battle of the East. So I got that. And I knew that for me, that was kind of the limit, because to go to a higher level of competition, I would have had to invest a lot more time, which I just didn't have between job and family life. So, and to get to that level, to that regional competition, I had to already invest a ton of time into it. And then I participated in what is called Inner Talks, basically a session where a guy called Marcus Smith, who now is my coach, talked about his experience in an ultra run. It was the Marathon des Sables, which is a 250-kilometer race throughout the Saharan desert.
Yeah.
And as he said, as a CrossFitter, I did not enjoy running. Yeah, I liked weights, I liked muscle ups and all this kind of stuff. But running was really, like, anything longer than 100 meters was just to stay away from me. But the way he explained it, and I think ultra running is, on the one hand, is a very physical exercise, obviously, but it also gets very much into your mind. Yeah? And that balance, yeah, at what point in time it becomes a mind game, yeah, where your body tells you to stop, and you basically have to carry on. That just was so intriguing for me. So he gave that talk at some point in November in 2018, and I went to him and said, look, I always wanted to do something that is completely out of my comfort zone. And since I don't like running, can you get me fit for the next MDS? 250K for somebody who doesn't like running is pretty far out of it.
Yeah.
And so we drew up a plan, and I think on late December, around 20th of December, we flew to Romania to see the family for Christmas. And first day in Romania, so around 21st, maybe I bought my first pair of running shoes. That was it. So the 21st, around 21st December 18, I started running really. And we followed a plan, and eventually I didn't do MDS because the sign-up fees are quite expensive. And this race came up in Sri Lanka. And a bunch of guys, they're called Ultra X. They started fresh out and they are now very successful in arranging races across the globe. And that was their first race. So we had a few people from my group from my gym that joined there, and I said, okay, I'll tag along. Beautiful race, Sri Lanka through the jungle, and all that. But it was incredibly hard. It was around 5 to 6 degrees hotter than what the organizers actually had expected, with higher humidity. Okay. And the expected temperature was already quite high. So there was a ton of people who started out and didn't finish. There were stages where people had to get IVs. So it was quite it was super challenging. And I remember that at one stage I was literally swaying from one side to the other on one of the stretches, and I had to sit down just in the middle of the road. And one of the ladies there went with a bucket down to the next river and got it full and just threw it over me. And
just to cool you down.
Yeah, and she did that 2 or 3 times. And without her, I don't think I would have been able to finish. So long story short, it was very, very tough. The last stage is... sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that, but Sri Lanka also is a 250K race over 5 days. The last stage is, in fact, the shortest one. I can't remember the exact distance, but it's around 15K. But there as well, the medics wanted to pull me out almost 5K before the finish line because I had some troubles breathing and I told them, well, you can do whatever you want, but I'm not stopping. Yeah? And eventually, one of the medics ran or walked with me the last 5K to the finish line, but I wanted to finish.
Wow.
And that was, it was an incredible experience. And it's very different to single stage running. You're for 5 days, you're in a group of people. It's a much faster ultra run because every day you run a limited amount of kilometers.
Yeah.
Then you have food, then you can sleep. So the next day you can go out with full speed again. Whereas in single stage, obviously, you go without stopping. Yeah. So I did that. It was fantastic. I came back and had contracted malaria. Was it malaria? I can't remember. But anyway.
I remember malaria because I checked on you, and actually I've seen the picture of you in the hospital trying to, with the IV and everything. Is like, okay, this guy like took it to the limits.
Yeah,
and I noticed that it's a malaria.
So it was actually quite scary because I was at home and I dehydrated at a rate that was scary. So I lost 10 kilos within 4 hours.
Wow.
So it sounds impossible. Yeah, how can you lose 10 kilos? But essentially, I had to go to the toilet every 20 minutes and just water coming out. Yeah. So and at some point it was just I was close to collapsing. So my wife took me to the hospital, to the ER, and they did all these tests, and they obviously found the virus, and I had to stay there, and everything went well. But it was and from the entire group of guys that had traveled to Sri Lanka out of Dubai, I was the only one that came back with it. So it must have been that one of the drops of water that this lady or when you refresh yourself in the river must have gone into me and it was contaminated. Yeah. So, but it was. It was for me. This was part of the experience. Yeah, you travel to a foreign country. You run 250k through the jungle. You sleep on muddy grounds. But it was so beautiful, and then you come back, and it gives you. You think you're done, but then for the next couple of weeks, you have to recover from that kind of disease. But looking back now, it's all part of it. Yeah, so what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is a little bit of a cliche, but in a sense, it actually it's true, yeah, because it showed me, okay, I can handle this. So what's next? Yeah?
This quote stands with whoever basically tested it and experienced it. We're gonna cover the next milestone and your aspiration about the Ultra de Mont Blanc, Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. Is that before the preparation, because I'm sure that you went through a structured process to make sure that you finish and you go to Sri Lanka. The question is about how you created this structured program aiming for this milestone and trying to create the balance, not with the family, we're going to cover this point, but also with your business, because everyone who is aspiring to do something, at least to achieve something, he has the key challenge of how to maintain his business or his work or his startup or anything he's venturing to, in the same time trying to prepare for such an activity. So if you can just shed the light how you were determined, how you put the plan, and how you basically went through the process.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I have to say, none of this, like ultra running, you obviously, or running in itself, you do alone. Yeah, there's nobody running next to you, or it's not really a team. But in fact, it is a team effort, the way I look at it. Yeah, because none of this can be achieved by you alone. I mean, clearly some people can, yeah, but I think the majority, and it certainly applies to me, can do that alone. So you need to surround yourself with people that understand your goal, but also understand your circumstances, your lifestyle, and with that I mean what are the requirements being put on you by your professional life as well as by your family life. So how and those two, and that environment gives you a certain amount of time within which you can train per day and per week and so on, into which you have to put in the running as well as the recovery. Now, how to combine that? Obviously, so I went to my coach and I said, look, this is what I want to do. And so he put the plan together. And there's certain aspects that come into play. I think you need to be incredibly disciplined with your time. Okay. So, because otherwise one of the goals will slip, yeah? Mm-hmm. Either your professional goals or your family goals or your running goals will slip if if you're not disciplined with time. So it's quite interesting because the number of hours that you stay awake or they stay alert throughout the day that you can actually use does not really change. But it that block of hours has shifted. So from potentially getting up at at 7 to get kids ready and drop them to school, and then maybe going to bed at 10:30 or so, it all shifted a bunch of hours earlier, because you have to bring in the running at some point. And in the evening, it's extremely humid, so it's much more unpleasant to run. So you have to get it done in the morning, before you do anything else. So it turned out that I started getting up at 4:30, get the running done, then drop the kids at school. But therefore, you put the kids to bed at 8 o'clock, 8:30 latest. You literally leave their bedroom, you go into your bedroom, and you switch off the light, and that's done. Yeah? So you go to bed very early, or quite a bit earlier than you used to, but you get up. So and that turned out to be the kind of pattern that I had to do for the next bunch of years, because otherwise you could just not get everything done. Could you have done it with the running, for example, in the evening? I personally think that's much more challenging because of the climate that we're in. Yeah, I mean it's much more humid. So that was the only kind of viable way for me. And how do you then get all this under one hat in terms of with your business? I started out this whole running process, or my running goals started to develop pretty much at the same time that I set up my advisory boutique. And I think they actually contributed to the running contributed to the professional lifestyle, because it gives you a balance. Now, when you start out as an entrepreneur, and that in any kind of industry, I think when you start out having your own business, you have to take care of so many things that let's say if you're employed in a larger institution, as I was in a bank, are taken care of by so many other people. So you start out, you don't have any juniors anymore that you can delegate work to. You don't have a PA or a team assistant who can, do your bills. Like everything from accounting to everything has to be done by you. Yeah? That has benefits because you know what you put in will determine the outcome. But it obviously, in the first place, you have to get it done. And then, obviously, as you start your own business afresh, nobody knows the business. People may know you, but the business itself is a no-name business. So you will have positive experience, which gives you a high, and then you have very negative experience that really put pressure on you from an emotional perspective, because at the end of the day, you need to make money. And this can be quite a roller coaster. Yeah? So it goes like from good experience to bad experience. It goes really up and down, and this emotional roller coaster can be very stressful. Now, for me personally, I think having that running schedule was a kind of a valve to release that stress and that pressure, because I realized really that when I had extended periods of time, or for me personally, if I didn't run for 2 weeks, I became very grumpy, because then I didn't really have that valve anymore to get the stress off. And I realized that really that I lost patience sooner rather than later when I had to deal with the kids or in discussions with my wife. It's just that I wasn't such a pleasant person anymore. But the moment I started running again, I became a much more relaxed person. So this running in the morning or whenever you do it, yeah, this And that might be an hour, it might be half an hour, it might be longer runs, 3 to 4 hours. That gives you me time. That gives you, at least that gave me time. And I usually never listen to music or podcasts or anything. I just run. I listen to the footsteps, to the birds, whatever. And it gives me also time to process what has been going on over the last couple of days or weeks. Yeah, you have time to think. And so this running, I think, had obviously the physical and the training aspect, but it also contributed very strongly for me to process professional aspects of my life, emotional aspects of my life, so that I became a more relaxed person. And so yes, it does only work when you're disciplined with your time, but does it kind of collide with your professional life? I actually don't think it does, because if you get your time schedule organized, I think at the end of the day, it may actually contribute to you being a better person, a more relaxed person, which then transcends into all different kinds of areas in your life, professionally, family, with other people. So it might not be the same for everyone else, but it worked for me quite well.
That's really cool, because I believe that by creating a system or a routine, here we can say that you can create some, not flexibility, but a structure to make sure that you are approaching the training, the family time, and the business in a more scheduled manner.
You need to, and at the end of the day, that's what I'm like. You need to have all in balance, because obviously the business is important, yeah. So that always the business always needs to come first, yeah, because that is supposed to bring in the money and but for me, the three aspects of this life schedule, if you want, are equally important. That the family should essentially come first, yeah, because your family is your support group. That needs to be the number one. Obviously, from a financial perspective, the business needs to be number one. In my view, only if you as a person are content and happy and relaxed and in a good place, you can give, first of all, your family the attention, or the appropriate attention, i.e. the relaxed time, not the angry Chris time, but rather the love and the care that they deserve. Yeah. So but for that to happen, I need to have a certain, it's very beneficial to have some time for yourself where you can dedicate time to your goals. Yeah. And if you bring that all in balance, I think it's a beautiful, it's a very beautiful setup. Yeah, that each of that contributes to each other. Because if the running works out and it gives you still enough time to dedicate to the family, then you can give quality time to the family, and then you have the me time, you have the family time, which makes you generally a content and happy person. And I think that gives you a good base to focus then the rest of the time on the business and drive that as much forward as you can. For example, if I just extend on that a little bit, on the weekends, obviously during the week, so my wife is a lawyer, so she spends time in the office, so we don't see each other during the day, and the kids are in school, and so the weekend is the time where you spend time with your family. Now, on the weekend, I had to do also a lot of trail runs in Ras Al Khaimah, which is like an hour and a half drive there, an hour and a half drive back. So how do you bring that together? So the only way that worked for me is I partly got up at 2 o'clock in the morning. At 2:30, I was in the car, drove over there, did my run, drove back. So by 10:30, 11, I was back. And could spend the rest of the day, or at least a day and a half of the weekend with the family. It brings me back to the discipline. Yeah, it's not super easy to get up on a weekend at 2:30 to drive to the mountains. But as long as you're clear about your priorities and your goals and why you're doing it, what is it really that motivates you, and how important is it to you? I think all three parts of life can contribute incredibly well to each other.
I love this. It's since you mentioned the why why you're doing the running before we discuss the business side, but why you jumped into running, although you knew before that you're not a big fan of running.
Yeah. I just wanted to see what I'm capable of. I think I am naturally a competitive person. I knew that from all my sports kind of years before, maybe football or taekwondo. Like I don't think that I'm particularly talented at any of those, but I want to be as good as I can at the level that has been given to me, with the level of talent that has been given to me. So I want to reach the highest potential that I can get for myself, and that is really across all parts of life, in professional life as well as in my private life, and it was just something that, okay, can I do this? Yeah, is it like it's. I really don't like running. I like lifting weights and all this gymnastics part of CrossFit. But can I do that? And so that was really interesting to me. Is that something that I'm capable of? Because 250K through the desert is really, I mean, it was completely crazy from my mindset.
I was contemplating my 5K in the morning. So it's like, when you say that this number, like, okay.
So obviously I never did MDS. I never did the desert run, but I did then other runs. And it's actually quite interesting. When you start with something, you don't, yes, you have this overarching goal. Yeah, okay, I want to do this race. But you obviously start with, then you break it down into smaller steps. Yeah, you start with a schedule, and you need to start running. And I remember that the very first couple of months, the training program said, okay, go out, run for 45 minutes. We lived close to the canal in Dubai. And the target was, okay, don't get your heart rate over a certain amount of heartbeats per minute. So we started very slow, just to get used to running. And I think you need to start learning to enjoy running. Yeah, if my coach would have said, okay, do a tempo run straight from the get-go, I don't think that would have worked. Yeah, you need to start learning to love the process. Yeah, and as you see that you make little bits of progress. Yeah, I mean, progress is never linear, but if you see, okay, I'm getting a little by little better, then you start enjoying, and then obviously the intensity increases and the goals increase, the kind of the milestones increase. But the overarching goal, the why, was, can I do this? Yeah, that's not, running is not me, but can I achieve this? I've seen other people do it, so if they can do it, I should be able to do it. But is it possible? Yeah. So that was for me the initial goal. Yeah. And after I did the multi-stage, i.e. the 250 over 5 days, then the next thing was the single stage. It was UTMB.
Okay. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, UTMB, Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, is a single stage run about 171 kilometers around the Mont Blanc Massif in France, the highest mountain in the Alps. With 10,000 meters of climbing up and 10,000 meters of climbing down. It's single stage, i.e. you do it as fast as possible. So I heard about that after I came back from Sri Lanka, and I thought, oh, that sounds even more out of this world. But let's go and do it. And there was, so I did Sri Lanka, I think, in May 19, and there was a race in Oman, organized by the same company, by UTMB. So it was called Oman by UTMB. It was the same profile, 171, 10,000 up, 10,000 down, in Oman. And if it was a new qualification race for the one in France. If you finished that race, you would have got a guaranteed starting spot for the French race.
So you have to qualify to these races.
Yes,
So you just sign in and you go there.
No, you can't. So it's because it's for in terms of ultra running, UTMB is kind of the race. Yeah, it's it has only 2,500 participants in that race, but because you have probably 10,000-12,000 applicants, there's a lottery. So it's extremely difficult to get in. And to get into the lottery, you need to have 2 similar races done in the previous 12 months to qualify for the lottery. And so it's quite difficult to get in. And then they had this race in Oman, whereby if you finish that race, you got a guaranteed spot to start a starting spot. So okay, fine, let's do that. So we trained for that. Obviously, coming back from Sri Lanka, 4 weeks or 6 weeks rest, and then full on. And it's I personally think the Oman race is tougher than the French race, just because if you run around, Mont Blanc is such a popular tourist destination that the trails that you run on
the terrain and the weather condition.
So the terrain in Oman is much more technical, extremely challenging.
Okay.
And I started out and I DNF'd. I did not finish the race. And so I covered 140 kilometers in 48 hours, but at that checkpoint at 140, I got timed out. And it was very tough for me to get over that, because it just showed me, okay, you're not there yet. Yeah, and I think then you have 2 options. Yeah, first of all, you need to digest what just happened. Yeah, on the one hand, it's pretty amazing that you managed to run 140K in 2 days, but you did not achieve your goal. So how do you, and you know how much you had to train to actually be able to do that. So how do you then take it to the next step in terms of, okay, that my goal was actually to run further. How do I find the time to get to the next level? And so I wanted to carry on. Unfortunately, then we all had to deal with COVID. That threw a spanner in the wheel, so you couldn't get out anymore, and Dubai lockdowns were pretty tight. And to be honest, that impacted me personally and on a mental level quite a lot. Much more than I expected. But my fitness went down quite significantly, and so it was a pretty tough time. We were obviously all locked into the house. The kids, we all had to adjust, like everybody else in Dubai. We need to do your own work from home, but you also need to ensure that the kids suddenly, who had never done homeschooling, obviously have to do their work now. So it was it's
a challenge by itself.
It's challenging for all of us, but it was it impacted me quite a lot. So then at some point I just had enough, and obviously we were lucky to be living in a villa. So I started literally doing a 10K, and I remember how I was mentally on a very, very, very bad point. And by cleaning up the room, I suddenly came about my starting bib for that Oman race, and I thought, okay, about a year ago or a half year ago, you were able to run 140K over 48 hours, and when I found that bib, I could not fathom how that was possible, because I knew in what kind of fitness state I was at that point in time, and it's like, how did you do it? But eventually I said, okay, but you did, so you managed, so get your act together and get going again. So I started doing 5Ks and 10Ks around the villa. So I ran about, 150 laps around that house. But it was the start, and then obviously as restrictions eased, we carried on, and I had to kind of start from the bottom again, but just knowing that at one point in my life I was capable of doing something that now it was actually quite hard to believe that I was capable of doing it. Seeing that starting bit was got me a kick in the butt, so to speak, and I carried on, and I think that's something I learned throughout these years. You need to kind of find a system how you can bottle up, so to speak, good experiences, because life is never in a straight line.
Love this.
You will go down, you will have bad experiences, you will get frustrated, either your business is not doing well, or you get injured, or something in your private life. If you then have things that remind you of what you have been able to achieve, or of any kind of good experience in your past, I think that can drag you literally out of the bottom, out of the hole that you're in by itself. So I think it's very important and everybody has positive experiences.
Yeah.
That they may be completely different from other people's experiences, but everybody has something that was positive in their own life. And I think it's very good to kind of have pictures around the house, or to somehow to be able to conserve those memories, so that when you're feeling bad, look at those things and try to remember how it felt when you achieved something great. And I think that will help you. So I started that running schedule again. And again, life is not in a straight line. I remember that towards end of 2020, I was what I thought is the best form of my life. I was crushing 10K personal best times, half marathon personal best times on tempo runs, on interval runs. So not when you actually try to be as fast as possible, but they just went like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, let's go. Yeah, I was super excited. Come end of Jan, beginning of Feb 21, and I got injured. Yeah, and I was like, what's happening here? Yeah, it's not again. And so again, things are going up and down, and it's that what brings me back to what I said earlier. I think you need to have a team, and that includes family, friends, coaches, whatever. That know what's going on exactly. Because I was obviously extremely frustrated, and I thought, okay, my goal is slipping away again, and you need, like in that situation, my coach was able to relax. You were in a bad state before. You got to this point where you thought you were in the form of your life. So now this will throw us maybe back a bunch of weeks. And in any case, your performance is not, or your conditioning is not going away overnight.
Your baseline is already established.
Correct. But you need people to give you a reality check, to help you understand in what kind of situation it's. Because if you try everything to do by yourself, and that might be business or private life, you will only see your angle. But talking to other people, that might be your wife or friends or a coach, that give you their perspective, suddenly opens up, okay, well, it's actually not that bad. Yeah,
that's a beautiful advice.
I think it's a huge thing that you need to have a support system for everything, for private life, for sports goals, for professional life, to bounce off business ideas with other people that have seen something similar before. So that happened, and so we started again to build up, and training carried on, and I ended up doing this race. So.
Do you think that the failure in Oman race give you the I would say the drive or the switch that, okay, I failed, I learned something here, what can I do out of this failure?
Yeah, I mean, I had many more failures, and in fact, what you said is applicable to a different race where I again did not finish. So when I then recovered from the injury, I had a few races planned out, and I wanted to do again one of these single stage 171K races in Spain. And we said, okay, fine, you're coming back from an injury. That's not possible. Let's be sensible. And we scaled it down to one of the other versions of the race, which was 95K. Also, again, with a decent amount of elevation, I think 6,000 meters. So we combined that with a family holiday throughout the summer. We went to the Pyrenees. It was beautiful. And I did this race. And I did not finish. And I basically quit at around 80K.
You always miss like 10 to 15 to 20.
Yeah,
you already crossed 60-70% of the race.
I mean, it was a brutal race. And I remember very vividly I can see it right now in front of me, the section where I mentally checked out. Now, I think I wasn't fit enough yet coming back from the injury to finish that race. But the point to make here is that I did not try my best to get to the next checkpoint where I would have potentially been timed out. Yeah, but at least you have given your best. In that last ascent, that last ascent just broke me mentally, and I can see myself lying on the side and crying and being, I can't do this, and I had given up there. Now it took me about 4 to 5 weeks to admit to myself that I quit, because I rationalized in all kind of different ways that you would have been timed out, and therefore, since you would not have made it in any way, so you were already timed out there. And I remember I have a conversation with my coach, and I said, I didn't give up. I was timed out. I was just not timed out at the checkpoint. I was timed out early already. So it took me 4 to 5 weeks to admit that I had mentally quit. Yeah. However, that race, in my view, was probably the biggest learning experience and the biggest positive contributor to me actually finishing then every other race after that. Because what I did after that race, and then before every other race that I started visualization techniques.
Okay.
Whereby, like, for a week or 10 days prior to any race, before I go to bed every night, I kind of meditate and see myself in that situation in Spain at the last ascent that broke me, that I did not finish. But in my mind, I see myself finishing. I manage it. Yes, it's tough, but that's what you've been training for, and you manage it. You go to the summit, you turn around, you celebrate your kind of temporary victory to have made that ascent, and then you carry on. And I imagine that for maybe 10, 15 minutes continuously for a week or 10 days prior to the race. And I am not a scientist, and I don't know to what extent that actually helps. But from the time I've started using this kind of technique, I have finished every race, and I have performed better at every race that I did since then than I ever expected for each race. So I did one in Austria, I did one in Turkey, I did and a few other ones, and then obviously UTMB. And I did this technique every time, and I never encountered a situation again where it was just like where I checked out, because apparently when you do these kind of techniques, even if you're not on a mountain, even if you don't do it physically in reality, your mind gets trained to, if you get to that situation, your mind gets used to the idea that you will overcome it. And I think that while that was particular to an ultra race or to a run, I think it translates into the rest of your life that, okay, it's difficult, it's hard, but you can do it. Just do another step. Yeah? And no situation is that bad that you give up. Yeah? It's circumstances are what they are, but let's just carry on. Yeah, you can't just sit and stop. And I think that's so this whole experience, this race that I didn't finish. Again, it's very hard to accept, and I think that was a race where my kids were there, and they saw me not finishing. And obviously, as a father, you always want to portray to your kids that if you work hard, you can achieve whatever you want. In that case, I worked very hard, and I did not finish. And it was extremely difficult for me to kind of show that to them. But it gave me the opportunity also to then show them that don't get too bogged down, and don't, even if you have several setbacks, the injury, the race that I did not finish, don't give up. If something is important to you, you will experience setbacks, but these are part of the process, and you can learn things from that. And you have, if your goal is really, really important to you, carry on and take the lessons from that failure, and it will actually improve you. And I think, looking back now, that journey that they saw me over the last 3.5 years, getting up in the morning, where's Daddy? Daddy's running, watching me at the race, seeing me at my worst, but then also seeing me finishing the races, I think that has left a lasting impression in their mind. And like I get approached from so many people that they deal with, for example, their gymnastics coach, their football coach, their teachers at school, and said, "Oh, you need to talk to me because your kids are telling me all about this." And so it's
love this.
It's incredible to see how your journey has impacted your kids. And so yeah, I'm digressing a little bit, but I think the biggest contributor to me finishing this race that I always dreamed of for over 3 years was actually a failure, i.e. the failure to finish the race in Spain. And that's...
Did you visualize the failures during the process of meditation? Because I strongly believe, I'm not sure about the scientific aspect of this, about visualizing the positives or the goal itself or the steps to achieve the goal versus the visualization of failures, where again it's a bit not the confusing, but which one do you think that gives you more drive to visualize what are the steps to achieve it, or trying to avoid the failure? Of course, you learn from all the failures from different races, but do you think which one gave you more drive to make sure that you don't do this again?
So in regards of the visualization, I only imagined succeeding in that point in time. I visualized the situation where I in reality failed, but in my mind then I managed, I succeeded.
Okay.
I did not really dwell on or repeating in my mind that the failure again and again. Yeah, I obviously knew what was happening. I was probably physically not fit enough yet, which also showed me, okay, what you're trying to do there is not so easy. Yeah, so don't get comfortable. You've trained a lot, yes, but you need to train more. So it obviously gave me a reality check. But in my mind, I think I wanted to train my mind to have a kind of, to be a successful mind. I had to have a mindset of resilience, of success, to be able to manage even difficult situations. Yeah, and then when you during your training runs, for so many, when you get to the point where it gets tough, I always imagine myself to be very close to the finish line of the race that I wanted to do. But that race had also a cutoff at the finish line. So if you finish UTMB in the longest time frame that you have is 46.5 hours.
Okay.
So
that's
during the training runs, I was always imagining, okay, fine. If you slow down now, you will finish in, I don't know, 46 and 45 minutes or 47 hours. You need to push on. You need to finish within the time frame. So these two things, you have to have this goal in mind physically, but also mentally. I mean, I trained I put myself always in a situation where I crossed the line. I saw that finish line so many times. Amazing. In my mind. I've crossed that finish. Before I did it on foot, I crossed that line, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 times in my mind already.
Wow. And that's impressive. But again, it's a bit confusing to see if I put the failure or looking into basically how I can achieve this goal. Again, Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. I think you aimed for this race. So how and you finished the one in Oman, and after that the Spain. Take me through the trip, the whole trip, and how basically you achieved this one.
So it's the race was on 26th of August. Mm-hmm. We went there beginning of July with a whole running group for a training camp for a bunch of days. So I saw where the race is going to be. We ran actually only very little parts of that, but at least you saw we were based in Chamonix, where the race starts, where it finishes, and you could experience. You could already feel the vibe. Yeah, it's just it's a magical place. And then the last couple of so from July to the race start, those 6-7 weeks were actually quite interesting. So we did a training camp for 10 days. Then we combined that with a family holiday. So from there we went to Disneyland. That was 3-4 days off. From there we went to Paris. I had to run again. So in the morning, family was still sleeping. I got out, did my 10K run. So again, you have to discipline. It's who wants to get up at 5 in the morning on a holiday to go running? But obviously it's holiday, so the rest of the day you want to spend with your family. So I got that done. We came back. Then a few days later, we left again to go to Romania to visit the family of my wife there. And my coach had put in my training plan 2 blocks over the 2 weeks and 2 weekends that we spent in Romania. Okay, kind of a medium, a longer, a 3-hour, a 6-hour run.
Medium.
And then the long one, which he said, okay, 14 hours. So I did this plan. I made the route, and I ended up doing 18 hours because I got lost a little bit, and it was a very tough training run of 18 hours, and but mentally it was fantastic preparation, because you for 18 hours I was completely solo. There were no checkpoints like in a race where you can fill up your water bottles or anything, where you can get nutrition or anything. So I had what I had in my backpack, and that was it. And so I covered in those 18 hours 60K. 60 kilometers, and I was actually at the beginning I was like, you should have covered more. But then once I started processing, okay, this was much worse condition than in a race. You were completely solo, no checkpoints, nobody who could help you. I thought, okay, that was actually not bad. So the longer I thought about this training run, the more confident I became. So this was a good prep. So then come the race weekend, I flew a few days earlier than the family, just to get acclimatized, to get ready for the race mentally, to be able to sleep a little bit and relax. But you arrive in Chamonix. You flew into Geneva, then took a bus to Chamonix, and you walk into the village, and you see the big arch, the start line, the finish line, and wow. I get goosebumps now when I think about it. It's just, you can sense the excitement. It's a whole festival. It's not only one race. It's a 1 week of races, from 1K runs for the kids, obviously there's even one longer run, about 300 kilometers. It's a team run.
Okay.
So every day you have either a race starting or you have a race finishing in Chamonix. So the atmosphere is exhilarating. And you have people lined up along the road and supporting every runner that comes in. And the day or 2 days before my race was a 140K race. And the cutoff for the finish, for the last person to arrive at the finish line, was, I think, 6 p.m. And people kept standing there until, I think, 45 minutes after the cutoff, because they wanted to clap and to cheer on the last people that were still on the track. It was just amazing. And it gives you this boost. So I was super excited. Then the family arrived. We got ready. And like the day of the race, of the start, it's something very difficult to describe. I've seen, like I have on my phone, I have a video from the start procedure from 2019.
Okay.
And they have a very distinct start procedure. So you have in this very little market square, you have 2,700 runners that are ready to go. And suddenly they shoot these very loud guns, and then they shoot it again, and the rhythm gets faster and faster, and the 2,700 runners, plus those, 10, 15,000 people along the road in the
Cheering.
cities, and they clap together in sync with these loud bangs. And then, so the atmosphere gets hyped up, and then they play 2.5 minutes prior, they start playing Conquest of Paradise from Vangelis. And as the music gets louder and louder, and then basically the ends in a crescendo, and the high point of that song, the start line goes, and it's just, you get that feeling, like, or I got that like, okay, this is what I wanted for 3 years. This is what you've been training for 3.5 years. This is what you wanted, and now you're here. For me, it was a success to be at the start line. Finish was, let's try. Mm-hmm. But being there, because I've seen that video on my phone so many times, that's where I wanted to be. That was my goal, yeah? That's what I invested in all those hours on the trail. And now I'm here, and I achieved it. But the moment you cross that start line, so you have obviously 2,700 guys there, and so it takes about 3-4 minutes everybody to go through. But then you go about 3-4K through the village, and thousands of people are lined up there, and they cheer you on, and you feel like a gladiator. And as the clock runs down, yeah, from 30 seconds, and there's obviously an announcer or a commentator, and says 171 kilometers, 10,000 meters of climbing, and you turn right and you see Mont Blanc there, and you think, oh, so this is serious, and now this is now it's real, yeah? And it's an incredible feeling. So we ran out. It started all pretty fast for me, but I felt good. Let's go. And it went really well. I just felt strong, yeah. I quickly realized that from my training sessions, I feel really, really strong on the climbs. So when I was constantly overtaking people on the ascents, just by having this rhythm, just keep on going, and then and that gives you kind of a boost, yeah. And then on the downhills, I let it fly, and I just was feeling very good at the beginning of the race, yeah. And I got into the first, so my wife and my family and the kids, they were supposed to be at certain checkpoints to support me. And
yeah, I'm looking forward for this moment.
Yeah, and
I think it's surreal.
Unfortunately, so the first checkpoint where they were supposed to meet me, they were not there because I was running too fast. I got there too soon.
That's a good sign to keep going. Like, okay.
So I looked around, didn't see them, refilled, got something to eat, and carried on. And so they then arrived. I learned later they arrived, I think, 10 minutes after. So they jumped back in the car and
that means I'm on track.
Yeah. So long story. And then the next checkpoint I saw them was really nice. And so it turned out that the halfway point, the big halfway point, is in Courmayeur on the Italian side of the Mont Blanc Massif, which is at 80 kilometers. And I was way in front of my race plan. The final cutoff time for the finish line is 46.5 hours. I had my own race plan designed for 43, so to give me a little bit of leeway. But I was doing so well in the first half of the race that at Courmayeur at 80K, I was 3-4 hours ahead of my race plan.
Amazing.
And I remember that I said to Adela, to my wife, like, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I will not finish. And what I was afraid of was not. I just knew, okay, you've done the first half. But now the race really starts. Yeah? I mean, 80. You now have to run another 90K. Yeah, and now you start going into the night, into the second night. Yeah, and now the mind games will start. And it just seemed so inconceivable to me that I was doing so well, better than expected, better than planned. So I'm probably going out too fast. Yeah, so something is going wrong here. So I was really afraid that I was going to crash. And that's, again, why you need to have a support system and people that know you. And she said, look, you trained for this. You're doing well. You're in good shape. Let's go. So we carried on. Coming out of Courmayeur, it goes straight into a quite brutal descent. It was now midday, 1-2 o'clock. The sun was burning down. And again, on the ascent, I did well. Yeah. But then the downhill back to a checkpoint called Anuva was just horrible. My knee hurt. I didn't run the downhill at all. I just walked. And I got there and I was in tears. I just dropped my gear and Adela said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not, because everything hurts and stuff." And she said, "You're 6 hours ahead of where you're supposed to be."
Impressive.
And I was like, "All right," but I'm still feeling bad. And he said, "Relax, get a massage. There were medics, and let them take care of you."
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed in that checkpoint an hour and 10 minutes, which is very long, yeah. But when I left, I actually had still five. I was 5 or 4 hours ahead of my time. So
You did not plan the phases, right? It's like,
no, I didn't have I knew where I had to be at certain points in time according to my plan.
yeah,
And I knew, okay, you just had an hour rest. You're feeling now kind of refreshed, and you're still at 4 hours ahead. So, and that was kind of the pattern that went throughout the rest of the race. That on the uphills I made time good. On the downhills, I either did not lose or didn't lose much.
mm-hmm.
So and that was kind of the thing for the rest of the race. And the longer the race was, the more time I accumulated to be ahead of my time plan. And I was getting to the point where I said, this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to finish this race. Yeah, I mean, it seemed so unreal that I will manage. A very good friend of mine that I have trained a lot together, and who's kind of at a similar level of fitness. He did the race a year before. He got timed out at the very last checkpoint before the finish line by 15 minutes. So imagine that you run 165 kilometers over 45 hours, and they tell you have to stop. Like literally, he had to run another 6.5K into the finish line, which was only downhill, but they didn't let him. So and knowing that experience, I knew this race is not over until it's over. So there's tough.
Yeah.
But the longer the race was, the more surprised I was with myself. Okay, this is going well. So, and then, I mean, long story short, I ended up, I got to this last checkpoint where my friend got timed out, and I was tired. I can't remember. I must have been, this was 2 hours, so I must have been 40 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And from there onwards, it was just 7K downhill. And I ran this 7K downhill 3 days before, after I arrived from Dubai. I ran it. So I knew exactly what was going to come. And as I approached that checkpoint, that tent, 5 meters before, I just had to stop, because I knew, okay, you've done it. You made it. Like, this is the last time cut off. If you walk through this tent, there's nothing left that can prevent you. Otherwise, there's injury. And it was such a strange feeling when you realize it's happening. Yeah, and obviously then the downhill, and you run. Then you get to the bottom of the hill. You cross the river, and the last 1.5 kilometer, you run through Chamonix, and you run through, like, the street is lined with people that cheer on everyone who comes, and I was so happy about what was going to happen. I could have screamed. I wanted to scream, but obviously you can't run around screaming. So I was just laughing, and I just laughed out loud, and people were cheering me on, that foreigners,
yeah.
and it's an incredible feeling. And then you turn to a main road, and it's like the Tour de France. Yeah? When you go up to the hills, you cannot see the road anymore, because people are standing in front of you.
Like
and
a tunnel.
as you run, obviously they open the gap and you go through, and it's incredible. And then about 200 meters before the finish line, before the last turn, I saw Adela, I saw the kids, and the kids were running with me then the last 200, and Adela met me at the finish line, and that's a feeling that I would love to bottle up somehow, because it was just not only the race was finishing. What was finishing was something that had started 3.5, 4 years before. You have this idea, this race. I want to do this race, and for me, the goal was actually not finishing. I wanted to be at the start line to have the same emotions that I saw people that I have on this video on my phone. I wanted to have those emotions. I wanted to be in the middle of it, and now I'm actually finishing it. I'm finishing it way better than I actually expected for me, and I can share this with my kids, and I can share this with my wife, and it was very emotional for me, and so yeah, it's I'm incredibly happy and grateful that I had this opportunity and that I have all these people that helped me to achieve that.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. Even when I looked into the videos and your kids running with you to the finish line, this moment, I'm sure that brings aspirations to others, not only for you, because of course you were in the middle, the center of the action. But again, it's like the whole journey and all the challenges and the surprising fact that you realize that you are ahead of what you planned for. I think this will give you even more, not even motivation, like the drive to keep going. And I think you are.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I have to be very grateful to my coach to put me in this physical position that I was able to run the way I did. I never thought I would have been in shape to achieve what I did, or in the way I did it. But what is now after the race is actually I feel so at peace, because, as I said earlier, the game or the goal was always, is that possible for me? Am I capable of this? Yeah, this started with a 250 over 5 days, and now this race, which I know of people that have tried it and did not manage to finish. Yeah, but can I? And I've done it. I've ticked that box. And now for me, every other race that comes, now UTMB is for trail running, it's like Wimbledon in tennis. It's the race. There is no trail running world championships, but if there was one, this would be it. Yeah, all the greats of trail running. So they set a new course record. So to put that into perspective, I ran 42 hours and 35 minutes. The winner did it in 19 hours and 50 something, or 48 minutes, so sub 20. So complete different stratosphere. But this is the race, yeah. And now that I've ticked that box, there are other races that I'm looking at, but every other race will be for pleasure now, because I know that if I put in the work, I will be able to do it.
Yeah.
I've proven to myself that I can do things if I put my mind to it. If I get myself organized, if I have the right people in my life that I can achieve my goals, and I have a mind that is strong enough to achieve that. I don't think that mind was strong enough 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The mind got trained the way my body got trained, yeah, and the mind got trained through failures as well. But having now seen that I can achieve this, everything else is, I'll try my best. If I fail, I fail. But I've shown myself that if I really have put my mind to it and commit to a goal, I can achieve it. And
yeah, on that point, how much do you think the ratio between the mind and the body? It's like, I think it's because you learn through the whole races.
Yeah.
So I just need to understand now, since you achieved this, what's the breakdown between these two?
It's very difficult to say. I think, you need to be in physically in that shape, yeah. But you can. There were runners which were physically in a better shape than me, but they did not finish, yeah, because you get to the point, yeah. I ran 42 hours without. Okay, that's not true. I ran 42 hours, 42 and a half hours with 1 hour sleep in between, because the last 10, 12 hours, I couldn't get any food into myself. I just couldn't keep the food in.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, if I can't get nutrition in, I need to just somehow make sure that my body can conserve the energy that he still has. And I was so far ahead of my time schedule that I slept for 1 hour on one of the checkpoints. But it's at some point you're in a race like this, your body says, "You nuts? What are you doing here?" Yeah, like everything hurts, and although everything hurts, and you're already on the road for 35 hours, there is another 1,500 meters to climb at a ridiculous gradient, but it's difficult to say what's the balance between mind and body, but I think that's the fun for me. I mean, that's the interesting thing, that the more I got into ultra running, the more interesting that point in time came to me. Mm-hmm. A race for me starts to become interesting now and that depends on the distance. Yeah, if you do a 90 or 100K race, then probably that point comes after 60, 70. If you do a 170, that maybe comes after 120, but because you run at different paces, at different speeds. But
yeah,
at one point in time, your body says, enough, finish, stop. And to then have that mind power to will yourself to do another 10K, another 5K, another 2K to the next checkpoint, then you fill up and then you go again to carry on. That's when it really gets interesting, because if I compare that to my sports life before the CrossFit style, like 20-minute workouts, heart rate at 180, full on, but then you're done. Mm-hmm. Whereas here you spread this over a 2-day period, 2 days, 2 nights. It's a much lower intensity, but I think from a mental perspective, the intensity comes obviously later, a day later. But that intensity to give up, to stop, I think is, personally for me, is higher. Wow. And to overcome that, and to be strong enough, and to have your mind trained enough to force yourself to carry on, and to be confident enough at the end of the day that you've trained for this, you've put the time in, you have put the work in. I think that's the interesting bit. Yeah.
So it's what's next for you? Because every athlete who finished a key milestone, he always fall into the trap that, okay, this is amazing, done. What's next? Is there a bigger challenge? Because you mentioned that you're going to consider the other races are okay because now you know the framework, you've done the work, and you can achieve them. Yeah. So do you consider something more challenging, or maybe changing the sport? I'm not sure.
It's very interesting, because training for this goal has been the focal point of my life for the last 3 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I say the focal point of my life because in my view, to achieve that goal, it's not, as you mentioned earlier, you cannot just sign up and say, okay, in 9 months' time I'm running this. Mm-hmm. You need to qualify for the lottery. So to qualify for the lottery, you need to do two similar type of races in the 12 months before the lottery. So that means, and the lottery is when? The lottery is 7 months before. So essentially, you have a 2-year period when you have to do 3 races: the 2 prep races, the 2 qualification races, plus the final, the actual race.
Yeah.
So then you need to, in the period before, you need to train for this. So to do all this, you really need to change your life, your like the way you approach life, to put everything, as I mentioned earlier, into that 24 hours that you have per day, or those 7 days a week. And suddenly you've achieved the goal. You do not need to train anymore because you've done it. Now, what are you going to do with all your time? And this focal point of your life has been taken away. And it's very interesting to see that already after a week or 10 days, I was like, okay, I want to run again. I want to like, what do I do? My training peaks, like the app that has all the runs that I have to do is empty. What? Just googling other races, and so I'm a little bit more relaxed now. I'm past the stage of kind of not frustration, but a little bit of searching. Something's missing in my life, so I'm okay with. I'm back into running. I'm back to a scheduled training plan that is not as intensive and not as kind of as it was before. But I'm digressing a little bit. But the point of you get to the point where you realize that the race is kind of the cherry on the top. Yeah, I learned to love the training process over the last 3 years, and all the other benefits that have actually come with that training, with the running schedule. To get to the race and to finish the race is great. And that will be a moment I will always remember and cherish. But I have experienced what positive benefits that training schedule and that running has for me from a mental perspective, as I mentioned earlier. It gives me time. It gives me time to process things that are happening in the other parts of my life, professional, privately, and so from a mental perspective, it's actually a very big part of my life to, if you want to say, to remain sane in such a ever-changing and very fast-changing world. Yeah, from running your own business to make sure that everything is lined up. So running has become very important to me now. So I wanted to start running again. I wanted to get back into it, and not necessarily for the sake of training for a race, but for the love of running, for what running gives to me as a human. And yeah, so back into running. I did look up obviously a bunch of races. So I have.
You're aiming for something.
I'm looking at one in June, which would be in the States. Again, that's a lottery, so I don't know if I get in there. The other one is on. It's called, interestingly, La Diagonale de Fou. So the race of the idiots, which happens on La Réunion. Okay. In a small island next to Madagascar. There's similar type of races, but again, if I get in, if I get chosen in the lottery, it's great. If not, it's not. It's more for, and I'm very confident that I will finish them, that I will master them, because I don't know. I've trained now to be confident enough that I will be able to achieve this. And but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm relaxed now, and I'm looking forward to enjoy running for what running gives me, and to enjoy running for running purpose.
What do you consider coaching, since now you have a decent experience?
No, I'm not knowledgeable enough. I know certain aspects. I think I've learned a lot through my own running experience, and I can probably put. But there are so many other aspects. I mean, to coaching, which is like you need to understand what certain techniques of running can have an impact on how your muscles work and how your body works. Like I had an issue with I had a muscular issue that was just very, very painful, and my coach said, okay, we tried several things, but at some point he said, okay, let's shorten your stride length. Like we changed the running technique a little bit, and I would not be able to come up with that kind of stuff. So I'm not educated in physical and how your body works, how muscles work. I've learned a little bit by doing all this, but I think no, coaching is not my thing. I think what is a cool thing to do is like lots of people have approached me to just tell them my story, like talking about it like you and I do now, and like as I mentioned earlier, teachers of my kids and stuff. And it's a pleasure to talk to people, and I feel very grateful to have an opportunity to share a little bit of what this whole thing has given to me. Because as I said, the race is great, yeah, but what this new kind of structure, as you say, in life. Yeah, having something that you're passionate about, and that might be running, that might be my wife is very good at painting. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
To have something in life that you're passionate about, that you dedicate a certain amount of time of your week to it, so that you have me time, which gives you quality of something that is important to you, which in return puts you in a position to give quality time, love and care to your family or to other people in your life, and then to be a more chilled and relaxed person, to be good in whatever your profession is. Yeah, the fact that I have learned what running gives to me and what your hobby or your passion can give to your life, to talk about this and to show a little bit to my kids what you can achieve if you put your mind to it. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, to talk to people about it, not running coaching as such, but maybe, I don't know, share my story, and if that helps one or two people, and that's a cool thing.
That's an impressive closing, because I see basically the passion and the drive and the message that you can share to inspire others, which I really love. And again, I've been following you since your malaria case in Sri Lanka, and I'm not sure if I'm going to jump to running yet. But where people can find you in that sense, because it's a nice story to share. So where can people can reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I think my handle is Christoph Mues. You can post it, and
I will share the notes.
If anyone is interested, please do reach out. Send me a message. I'm more than happy to talk about these things. Obviously,
Awesome.
it's fantastic, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Christoph, pleasure to have you, my friend.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your time.